Hi there guys, Gary again here. Welcome to episode 5 of series 2 of the Graphters podcast, with the continuation of episode 4, season 2 of the Graphters podcast. Gary here. Just to let you know that everything's back on track, things are moving forwards, and we will have a bit more regularity in the podcasts coming up. But in the meantime, get ready for the second part of our wonderful interview with Paul Coulthard. What a wonderful guy, and such a talker. Hence the podcast number 2. Take care, guys. Speak to you in a mo. Welcome to the Graphters podcast.
But if you know anybody, Paul, do let us know.
I might know a few stories.
But one of the things I think I was just going to move on to with those. So just this is part of career pathway, and what we like to do is try and give our mad ramblings, whoever is on with us on those mad ramblings, some sort of form of saying, actually, you know what, guys, when now you're out there, the new generation, the next generation that are coming through, how they could take that information forward and help them with their career choices, and also the experiences. I mean, I do a bit of a careers talk, which, and I'll openly admit on this podcast that I stole the whole concept of the idea from Simon Fenton of Escape Studios, when he put a very, very interesting slide up about his career pathway, and he said, it's not no, it's just not yet. And I've built a whole slide deck out of the back of that, which is brilliant, because I wouldn't have had a clue otherwise. But it's about how we deal with the sort of the size, the volume, and I remember, one of the principals that I worked for, George. He used to give some outstanding advice in very cryptic manner, and he once said, "John, when you've got the elephant, don't try and eat it all at once. Break it up into bits." So, when
does
you're
it have
doing
to be an
something
elephant? Can we make it something like like a nice big beefy cow, or when you've got the whole bull?
Or it could be a big. It could be an aubergine as well, because obviously they're maybe
no, we don't do aubergines. We don't do that. They've been cancelled. Can't do that anymore.
But so for instance, March of the Machine. How long from storyboard to final is a project like that? And how long are you involved in something like that? We're interested.
March of the Machine. I think it was 5 months from beginning to end on that one.
You see, it's not as long as you think, is it?
No.
It's quite
really isn't.
Right, you have to give me a minute. I have to think carefully about what I'm allowed or not allowed to say, and you'll have to cut this bit out, right?
It's more about. I mean, the director comes to
if we can keep it, I'll try and keep it a little more vague and less project.
Do you want me to rephrase it?
Don't have to
in
be
a
specific.
Project, Paul. Yeah, in a project, when you start on a storyboard, how long would the end result getting there usually be on an average production?
Yeah. Depends on the runtime. So the runtime is a huge factor, of course. So on something like a 1.5 minute trailer, or a 2 minute trailer, or something like that, you're looking at, like, from beginning to end, maybe about 5 to 7 months. I want to say, depending on the complexity and the budget. That plays.
But and your involvement goes how long through that?
If I'm
process?
if I'm storyboarding, I'm on it for the boarding, and that's it. I'm off. So that's and usually
something like a co-director.
Usually on the cinematic stuff. The stuff I do now. The video game cinematics, or the, like, whatever card game type cinematics, or anything, whatever they are, right? The meatier stuff, content wise, is meatier than kids TV, right? But they tend to come in around between, on average, 1.5 minutes or 3 minutes, those trailers. So of course that can radically alter the amount of time you're working on something. But yeah, it's usually less than a year, but not much less than 6 months on one of them, right? For the project completion. Storyboards for one of those projects usually run at about, say, 3 to 4 weeks average, I'd say. which sounds generous, and it is compared to turnaround on a kids' TV stuff. It's like a lot more time than that but it's a different process entirely, right? So on kids' TV, you get the script, you board the script, you get one set of revisions, and you move on to the next script. That's it. There's no developmental stuff. You're not working out, like, bringing loads of brand new ideas. You're not trying out sequences like 10 different ways or anything like that, right? It's very do the job, and you understand what the show is. You should be able to hit that pretty solidly straight away, and then one round of revisions, and then you're done. On stuff like the cinematics, it's more of a developmental type of process usually, so it's a little bit more akin to the way they work on feature films. So like in Pixar, they have years, right? They'll be boarding for like 2 years straight on a film that they probably cancel, they won't even go forward with, right? But on the cinematic,
luxury.
Oh, they got empty pockets, haven't they? So bottomless pockets, I mean, not empty ones.
Yes, empty pockets.
So on the cinematic stuff, it's more of that developmental, right? You don't always get scripts. You often will have just an outline. You might get a shot list if you're lucky, but usually they happen quickly. Like the green light, I think this is all general enough for me to talk about. Like the time between, let's say, a green light on a project happening and then you like go on it is pretty short usually. So you'll have a script, but you might have like multiple final drafts coming in, as you've already started boarding it, right? And then you might not have a script at all. It might just be an outline or something like that. And so therefore it is very developmental. You kind of you're trying out all sorts of different ways of because it's such a bottled thing as well. It's a smaller thing. You want to make sure that every moment counts, right? It's like you have to make it potent, so you kind of can't go, well, that'll do, it's like, no, can we do this better? Like, I'm on here for 3 weeks, or whatever. Use me, like let's keep playing with that shot. Is the lensing working here? And it's more sophisticated as well in the sense of cinematography. So it's not just about getting coverage that says this, and this is going to happen. It's also this, and this is happening on a 70mm Alexa, or something like that from, 10 meters back on this shot. It's like you try and get that sort of spatial accuracy, and this is where like 3D
and the technical it's a technical accuracy.
Yeah, it's more. I think maybe I that was a little bit of a joke, like about getting that specific about the camera, but it is long lens, it's wide. Longer lens here, wider lens there. That covers an awful lot, right? I know that's making it simplistic, but like I don't need to know how the back of a camera works, right, or anything like that, how the aperture works. But I need to know what
Gary does.
From a cinema.
I was just thinking that the aperture is not something that goes at the back of the camera, but that's all I was going to say.
yeah, no.
So what I would say, just to segue onto that, then. With the explanation of the certainly two poles of what you were talking about there on different production types that you might be asked to do, for those students that maybe are entering into their third years of university and they're starting to develop their where they're wanting to get into and how they're wanting to get into those sort of areas, is there a certain resilience or a certain practical practice that they should be now starting to really hammer, get more of that in practice, doing shots where you are very rigid to stick to certain things, and then practice maybe shots where you've got that creative freedom. I'm just thinking how I would explain that if I was talking to an environment artist and I was saying you want to go and work on something like 4T Productions. There's a very specific art style you need to be putting on your showreel and making sure you have homaged that to the nth degree, so then when they look at it, you go, yes, you fit our pipeline, you can come and work for us, right? As opposed to doing something that's very Unreal Engine, very cinematic and very realistic and lifelike, which would then be saying you don't fit what we want.
God, I think this is a difficult one, especially when
no,
it's a good one, but it's a hard one. It is a hard one. I don't think
that wasn't what the question was.
I know, but I thought about it after I bombed the last one. Sorry.
I don't think there's an easy answer, because when you're still in school, like you don't know what exactly your specialty is yet, or could be. You might have an inkling, but that doesn't mean that then the right. So I guess a good general advice is try and figure out what it is that you want to do soon, so that you can go, okay, like for instance, let's talk in extremes. Do you want to work on Cartoon Network shows, or do you want to work on hyper-real action cinematics? Like those are drastically different ends of the spectrum, right?
Absolutely.
So decide like which of those extremes you think you're edging towards, and then cut that off. So if there's half of your potential workload gone.
You've half,
right? So you're facing the right mountain now, right? So there's like two mountains, you're facing the right one, and so then you can start going, okay, where am I? That you have to, like, this is hard when you're young, right? But if this is the thing with advice, isn't it? Right? It's so easy for us to talk now as older, distinguished.
Well, we're old. We can do
distinguished gentlemen, right? We reflected. And it's easy for us to see like where we were when we were certain ages, and if only I'd listened to that piece of advice. And people won't listen to it anyway, right? But if you can, a really good thing that you could do is to just try and be honest about, like, okay, look at your work objectively. Pretend you're not you. Look at your work and go, where am I? And then look at the mountain. Like, look at the thing you want to get to and go, okay, who's the artist who's doing that? What does that look like?
Yeah.
Where am I in relation to that? Not in a way to knock yourself down, but as a strong goalpost to edge towards. So I would say, if you want to be a cinematic storyboard artist, go and look at Dan Milligan's work, because he's the peak of the mountain, right, for that particular style, right? It's not the only style, but he is the master of that style. So if that's the sort of thing you want to do, then you can keep aiming toward Dan Milligan, and you'll find your own way, to it. You won't be Dan Milligan by the end of that journey, but if you aim towards him, then at least like you'll start honing your skills in the right direction. I think my train of thought ran off then.
No, it sounds like what you're saying is that if you, in order to understand who you are, you've got to keep working at it until you find out exactly who you are. Yeah, and I think that's true with most stuff. So. But it is that kind of like that. It's like me. I mean, it's like all of us. We've all looked at things and go. I mean, very much for me, it was, Steve Spaz Williams. The guy who animated the T-Rex on Jurassic Park. And this was when I was working in the games industry. So it's kind of like, even for me, he was a benchmark. And then him and Phil Tippett, they were two of the heroes for me for a long time. I actually met Phil Tippett at FMX in 2019.
You see, I met him at the Leaf Awards, so I'm going back. But he was really nice actually at the Leaf Awards, and he told a very, very interesting story, which I recanted today as well. And I'm probably going to butcher it, but it literally revolved around a janitor getting a job as a senior animation effects supervisor, because he was the guy that drove the bus for all the guys that went snowboarding, and while they were snowboarding, he did a little animation with the little handy cam that they had, went back, cut it together, and Tippett saw it and said, "Who did this?" It's like, the janitor did it. So somebody in the audience said, "How do I get a job at your studios?" And he said, "Well, we've got a janitor's position open. If anybody would like to fill it."
That's another route in as well, is the super humble, just get my foot in the door, doing whatever I can. Like, if you know there's, like, if you want to work for The Line Animation in London, right, they're amazing. You want to work for them? Have they got a job washing toilets there? Just go and do that, man. Do it. Just get your foot in, get talking to people.
You're so right, because I mean, I was lumping computers up and down the country in the 90s, and I was visiting these studios, and we'd set them up, and then you'd stay for a couple of days while they tested the machines out, and I was sleeping in studios and watching guys tear down shots and things and do 3D bits, and and that literally gave me the grounding to say, I can do this. Let's go off and do it, and and that's stuck my head forward.
Contrary to the advice I gave earlier, which was about finding a really clear direction and moving towards it, sometimes you might not have that, right? So another way of doing it is then to the more of the jack of all trades type of approach, which is then to just level up your skills a little more evenly across that midsection, right? If you're not sure what those extremes are you want to go, just kind of level up your, like, you can never be too good a drafts person, right? So keep drawing. Just keep drawing. Nothing can stop you drawing. Nothing can stop you getting better at drawing. So do that. Definitely do that. Keep learning. Like, because all of the fundamentals are the same. If we're talking about storyboarding, the fundamentals of storyboarding at both ends of those extremes are exactly the same. It's the nuances and the specifics that are different, like to do with the cinematography.
Surely
and camera.
it's the cinematography as well, isn't it? It's understanding, even though it's not understanding about cameras.
Mm-hmm. No,
as much as
not the
understanding about
the camera.
But it is more about
what is the shot conveying? What is the shot about? What does the light do? What does the lens do to this moment? Why does why is that long lens over the shoulder shot feeling so much more intense than the wide angle one earlier, and stuff like that? Like about compressing space, about like I love long lens stuff. I love big wide long lens stuff. I love Denis Villeneuve's Dune recently was like ludicrous on the size of the things on the screen was absolutely insane.
I still haven't seen it. I really need to see it.
It's great. The new one's coming out soon. Well, later on this year.
Yeah, come on, Gary, get on with it.
Right,
The spoilers will be out
spoilers.
Again,
Book speed is 67.
He's not ready. He's not ready.
It's a masterpiece.
What do you mean not read June? Of course I've read June. I read June years ago. I lost my copy. I had to get a new one recently. Can I ask a question, please, Uncle John?
Go on.
So comparing where you are now to when you were at school, and you were starting to...
We haven't even talked about Blender yet.
Contrary to popular belief, sometimes we don't talk Blender. We will definitely talk something.
We will. I want to get to that in a minute, actually, because even though we've not written it in a thing, I intentionally try not to put it in because I'm so constantly putting it in anyway. So go back to when you were starting to do the storyboarding, when you were starting to realise you wanted to be a storyboard artist. You wanted to have that directorial control over what you were creating, basically. What do you wish you had known then that you do know now?
I suppose it's what's that one little piece of advice that your very young self that was getting into the business really needed.
Let's see if I can give you a couple, and then you can either edit them or whatever, right? So in a general rule, any creative process this can apply to. I follow one very simple rule usually, and this was advice given to me by my now line manager John Beeston at Axis. He said, anytime you're going to make a decision, ask yourself, is this decision going to make it better or just different? If it's better, you do it. If it's just different, you don't do it. Because different is no different to what you just had, other than it just being, superficially different, right? It isn't. There's no value gain from
it's just extra work.
It's like you're wasting your time on those decisions that aren't. Yeah. They're not taking you upwards. You're just moving sideways. So that's a really good one. That will cut out about 50% of the decision making, and I think that's key. And like I was saying earlier with those two mountains, right? A lot of the problem with this stuff is like cognitive dissonance, and having these thoughts is just kind of like you're stagnant because you've got either two conflicting things, or you're just confused by the amount of thoughts you've got. If you can just slice that in half, like that's a good overall thing. So that's a really general one. Like, good, is it going to make it better, or is it going to just be different?
Obviously, your path into it was roundabout, as it were. It wasn't direct. Is there a way to now directly get into storyboarding, and how hard is it for anyone out there who actually wants to do it?
Well, was my path in? Yeah. So the resources available now are almost insurmountably large. Like, you are spoilt for choice now for education to do with storyboarding online. There's all in college, all in uni for exclusively for storyboarding, and this is a problem. There's one course that I could find in the entire UK that was focused on storyboarding and previs.
And you wrote it.
Who did?
Did you?
No. I'm talking about like at a uni level now, right? At a uni level, there are no 3-year courses for storyboarding. And believe me, you cannot learn I'm still learning, and I've been doing it for 20 years professionally, right? So the idea that there's this kind of storyboarding tend to get treated. Storyboarding tends to get treated as just, there's a module on storyboarding. Yeah, that's fine if you're just dipping your toes in. But if someone's serious about it, where's the 3-year course? There isn't one.
Yeah.
Well, there is, but there's one, and it's not enough, right? So, but online there are endless. Like there's so many good resources out there now. They're being taught by professionals, and they are absolutely, for the fact of the absence from universities, the presence, the online sphere absolutely demolishes university for the content available and the people who are teaching you, because these are professionals who've gone out and done this stuff and then are trying to teach you.
And you mentioned earlier at the very beginning of our discussion that you would get onto the online or in classroom where to learn. There are clearly issues with how current, how up to date the teaching faculty can be. My question and conversation over the last sort of 18 months has been, if there is this plethora of resource out there, why aren't we shaping courses to better accommodate that resource and really help train those trainers, the educators, the lecturers in general terms on how to best utilise that resource and embed that in and stop relying on courses actually being almost over specific in the way that they're constructed. As you said, I've discovered that I now want to be a storyboard animation artist. I don't want to do animation anymore. My passion is storyboarding. Yeah. There should be almost like a release valve on that course that says, now you major in that because you're going to get the best out of that.
But the thing is, you've got to have a professional at that university who understands what they're doing in terms of that, for that person to actually get any benefit from making that choice to do that. And that's the problem, is that, as we've said before, is that education is not specific enough at that level. It really isn't. What it is instead is like a blanket of visual medium sources. That gets you to a certain point that hopefully, if you are the luckiest in the world, gets you a job somewhere as a junior. And that's not enough. It's literally what I think Paul is saying. There is not enough high quality stuff out there in the educational level to give that information to students, to give them that leg into the industry. So if there's actually only one place which does storyboarding, that I could find, it a 3-year or is it a 2-year?
I think it was storyboarding in previs. So because that makes sense.
Where was it? Do you remember where it was, Paul?
Escape Studios is just literally just opened. Yeah,
it's now being bought out and will be moving to Greenwich. I'm not sure whether that's common knowledge, but anyway, that's where they're going.
I think that
it was mentioned at FMX in a very open
there
format.
There are, of course, like the European examples that are doing. We're all embarrassed by goblins, right? And we should be, because the work that they put out on a student level is better than what most people ever achieve as a solo project. When I haven't done anything anywhere near, you know what I mean? Like apart from the things I've worked on professionally, but.
I would say certainly what Ian Murphy's doing up at National Film and Television School is really good stuff. But they do work on much smaller cohorts of learners, which I think has much bigger benefit on the way that experience for them is.
And is it expensive?
It's a university course, so it's a university course.
Okay. Well, I think broadly what I'm saying with that is they seem to have, even though those courses are very expensive, the European Goblins and the other ones and the Cal Arts in America is like $60,000 a year, I think, something like that. Wow. Like who can afford that, right? But
hundreds of thousands in debt.
It's insane, right? So, but
then you've got places like Howest and Breda, on the continent. You've got Film Academy in Stuttgart. They have a real magic when you walk in and when you listen to the passion of the tutors, and all the tutors are practicing. They're all practicing professionals. They're doing their own directorial stuff. They're doing their own animation stuff, and it tells. And I was speaking to a curriculum head this afternoon, and the biggest challenge in the UK marketplace in education is how do you free staff up to give them the time to do their projects that they need to do. it's a conundrum because there isn't enough people actually delivering in the classroom. No. So it's that chicken and egg vicious circle. However you want to square the round hole or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they've got like what does work about those particular courses is they're based around a group structure. They don't they're not saying, like in the course I was on, for instance, at least the point I was there, it changed a little afterwards, and I think they started doing group stuff. It was pretty much like, you do your film, you do your film, you do your film. But by a certain point, you start, like I was realizing with storyboarding, really what should have happened is I should have storyboarded about 5 different films, and that would have been my final year.
And that's happening down at Hertfordshire. Right. We know that obviously is at Escape Studios.
Right, I'm going to do it. I've got to do
Blender.
it.
Let's go.
How did you discover Blender and its power for storyboarding? Is it just was it fluke? Did you just see it and go, "Oh, okay, Blender," and then go, "Actually, Blender," and then go, "B grease pencil"? I'm assuming that's what it was.
There's an origin story. So, I was supervising the Lego series down in London. London Axis's London studio at the time, no longer there, but they had a London wing down there, and someone, I believe John Beeston, had arranged for actually Jammer. Are you aware of who Jammer Jurabayev is?
Very. I was going to mention him anyway. Yeah.
Absolute genius, right?
God
tier. And he was in London at the time, and he said, "I'll come over and I'll give you a demo of." He was actually giving us mainly a demo of the VR. Like, I don't know what it was, like Quill or something like that. I don't know, whatever one of the VR thing is, right? So he's showing us all that, and we're showing his work, and then he got on to talking about Blender, and then he started showing us a bit of like his Blender stuff and a little bit of grease pencil, but anyway, he was so inspiring in that moment that I was like, yeah, I think that was one of those like those moments, like another one of those like it'll stick a pin in that moment, turning point. I'm going somewhere different after that, and then I bought his. He had a course about grease pencil. It wasn't really a storyboarding course or anything. It was just more about like how he makes images in grease pencil, either using a bit of 3D, or and also the grease pencil and everything. And it was enough for me to go, ooh, this is interesting. And this was in 2.78, I think, right? So 2.8 is when grease pencil was reborn as something new, and so I was dipping my toes in 2.7879 and learning enough about how to move, use Blender on a very general sense for that to then be my 3D tool instead of. I was a SketchUp. Is it SketchUp? SketchUp user
Pro.
For about 10, 15
To be honest with you, I mean, for a lot of when I was working in 2D, a lot of the background artists basically learned how to use SketchUp.
Yeah, it was so easy
because it was the best way they could do the drawings and get them right.
It was just a nightmare if you wanted to move anything around, and the cameras were really janky.
I'm pretty sure Kev Walker used Cinema 4D and just used to create boxes and putting things into long perspective, and then he'd paint over the top to get everything, so everything was absolutely.
Yeah, I dabbled with them all. I dabbled a little bit in Maya, a little bit with Max, SketchUp for a good while because we used to use that down in Mike Young. I can't remember whether it was me who found it and then got Gary on it, or whether Gary found it and we both because I was younger, I was like. I wasn't a tech whiz kid by any chance, but I was amongst the group. I was like the one who was ready to embrace all the new technology and everything. So we used that a lot. But and then that taught me like the value of using 3D for backgrounds and camera moves and stuff and staging. But anyway, with Blender, then once I had seen a preview of what 2.8 was doing with grease pencil, in that the big change that I can remember was that they made an object. And all the 2D is housed within the object, but you could move the object independently around like an object. And to me, that was like, there it is. Because in Storyboard Pro, I am a Storyboard Pro user. That's still my bread and butter software because of all the storyboarding efficiencies and renaming and all that stuff. It's just exporting and all that. And it has a 3D feature, but I've tried over the years to use it, and it's just janky, right? It's really, especially the cameras, like it just is a jank fest. You can't make anything in there, which I find frustrating. If I'm using 3D, I want to be able to make stuff in the 3D software I'm making it. You can't.
It's kind of like when ZBrush came along, and it's like it's a 3D package.
No, it's 2.5D. It's a 2D drawing package that just has inside of it 3D objects. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But
which makes it perfect.
Yeah, so I had for quite a while I had really tried to make that process work in Storyboard Pro. And by the way, I'm not saying that it can't be done, because I've seen people do really good things in it. I would suspect, though, they're working an awful lot harder than they need to be to get it to the level that you could get in Blender a lot easier, because of that separation, right? Blender is everything is separated in Blender. So in Storyboard Pro, you've got this problem with the timeline. Like now there is a vertical stack. There wasn't at the time. And without a vertical stack, that means that like pretty much any change you wanted to make, you had to like split your panel. Anyway, we're getting too technical, right? But it was a nightmare. So then Blender for me was like, yeah, this is it. This is a groundbreaking step forward, because look, there's nothing new about hybrid working, right? The intro to Spider-Man 1993 animated has a hybrid intro. The background is 3D and Spider-Man is 2D. There's and you know, Tarzan and everything, right? There's loads and loads of examples of this throughout the years before we got here. What is new?
Tarzan one's actually a really, really good one.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
When he's sliding around the tree, it's incredible.
Yeah, I remember that was I bought the one, you know, the DVD that had all the pencil stuff on it. But I think, so to me, the revolutionary thing with Blender was that you were actually in the 3D space drawing. It wasn't like you were just drawing over the top, which is ironic because of the way I actually work a lot of the time is still that I just print it out. I print the export out and I draw over the top in Storyboard Pro. That's the irony, right? But just for speed, if I'm on a professional job and I need to go fast, it's not fast Blender, unfortunately. But what it gets you, well, me anyway, it's because of those extra technical layers, it slows it down for me. But because there's like this 3D layout legitimacy to it that I love. I don't know why, but I am really obsessed with knowing that things work in three dimensions. I don't like sort of just cheating perspective or cheating, not so much perspective, but like space. I like to know that things can happen in the space they're supposed to happen in. I don't know why, right? But this is why
legitimacy in what you're doing. What you're doing, it kind of like...
Yeah, it is. And I know, I think part of the...
Does it look real? Is it legitimately working in the real space?
And is it going to work as well? Yeah, the other reason as well is like, and this is why I really love previews and everything, is I know that if I'm doing something in Blender, even if it is just blocking out in 3D or using grease pencil in Blender, I know that space works. So I can oftentimes I'll hand my Blender file over, and that'll be used as like the base for the low proxy build, the proxy build,
or even the final camera.
They tend to rebuild them all the time. Access, just because they have that's a pipeline thing though, I think, more than anything, because when you export a camera from Blender like as an alembic, there's a key on everything, right? So and then those things don't, because you can't export it with just the keys, because those keys in Blender do not translate to Maya exact 1-to-1. Anyway.
I think when Blender starts to move fully USD. Yeah. When it gets, because it's not there yet. It's not there. It's not fully. It's not bi-directional.
No, it isn't. No, it's not bi-directional. But I camera track in Blender. But my daily work most of the time is I'm working in Maya, and the camera tracks that I get out of Blender have worked perfectly in Maya. And they are literally keyframe on every single frame. Which is kind of the thing. Yeah. That's the point.
That's what I mean, though. It's that's a finished camera, though. If you want to change that, then it's a nightmare for the people. They've got to either do the thing where they do another layer or something, right? And things get out of hand. So what tends to happen?
They do an animation adjustment layer.
So what I tend to do is I'll do a block out, 3D block out. I'll hand that if I usually do when I do a camera block out normally as well. If I'll hand that over and they can use what they want from it. Usually I think they just use the space and then they just refer to we've got amazing previous artists at Axis, so that they get it like really close to wherever I left it off, and then they take it from there. I
didn't realise that we were using Maya. I've seen some of the stuff. I mean, I was watching John pointed me to the Magic the Gathering one that you've done that's up there recently, and it's glorious. I mean, it's just glorious. The whole thing is absolutely, obviously. I mean, it's been storyboarded brilliantly. But no, honestly, it is. I mean, it is 100% what it is. It is just cinematic, and that is what you're after fundamentally, aren't you? like a piece from a cinema. Which brings us on, I would like to say, if that's okay, because we're running a little bit tight on time, to our quickfire round, which I'm sure you've heard. And so we're going to... John, do you want to ask?
Yeah, I can do this. So, obviously, Paul, the quickfire round, we do try to keep these as, first thing off the top of your head. And none of these are sponsored. None of these are... No. So, favourite film?
Blade Runner.
Which one?
The first one. I love the
Good
second
answer.
one. I love the second one, but the first one is just sublime.
Favourite computer game?
Super Metroid, 1994.
Oh, my word.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, that is good. Yeah. Very good. Favourite lunchtime sandwich?
Bacon, gotta be honest.
Bacon sarnie? Lovely.
Yeah.
With sauce or no sauce?
No sauce?
Just plain?
No, well, barbecue if it's around, but I'm not really much of a ketchup sort of person.
What about a nice fried egg in there as well?
Oh, yeah. I have that. Yeah. It's usually laziness. Bacon's easy, right?
Egg
takes a bit more care.
Especially with an air fryer.
Yeah,
I've never tried.
Air fryers are genius. Just in, done. iPad and pencil or paper and pencil?
Oh God, the honest answer is iPad and pencil. Given what I do now, if I was to think if I'm thinking from my heart or whatever, then it's always pencil and paper. But I don't do it as much. I need to go back to it really. But no, in terms of what do I actually do, it's iPad and pencil. If I do either of those.
I mean, I can't draw to the level you can draw. I can't. I'm sure of it. And
I can't draw to the level you can draw.
But what I find is when I do draw, if I draw something using the tablet, using the Wacom tablet in front of me, it'll never be as loose or as real as when I use a paper and pencil. Yeah. And I get a much better feel for what I'm doing when I use a paper and pencil. I've got a Remarkable now, and I love my Remarkable because it's like using a piece of paper.
Right. Yeah,
but it's still not quite as good as using a piece of paper.
Yeah. No, you can't beat that feel. It's just I guess I'm so I have to think so practically about everything I do that there's no contest in terms of the practical. Like digital is just more practical than analog, unfortunately. But
drawing or directing?
Drawing.
Boarding cinematics or TV?
Cinematics.
Games or films?
Oof. Films. That's a close one. It depends on the games. Games.
Wacom, Huion, or SenseLabs?
Wacom. I've only ever used a Wacom. I've had the same one for like 13 years.
Okay, and the final one: custard creams or bourbons?
Custard creams.
What was that? Sorry, bourbon.
Custard creams.
Sorry, did you say custard creams there?
Custard creams for me.
I'm going to have to start vetting our guests much better. I'm miles down the leaderboard now.
It's not a competition.
Yes,
it is.
I could destroy a pack of custard creams in like one sitting if I have to.
It's so easy, isn't it?
I'll be like spewing. I won't actually spew, but I'll feel so sick afterwards. But
we've got a metal tin, like a cookie jar basically, but it's like a metal one. And it sits on the shelf in our pantry cupboard, so you can't see it in the kitchen. You open up this big cupboard, and it's there with all the other crap that we eat, all the other dried food, and we always have custard creams in the house. But occasionally, there's other biscuits that arrive that I do not vet, and and they go in the tub, and I will open it up and I look at it, and my youngest child today, he came into the kitchen. And she took out the jar and she's chatting to me. She takes the top off and she goes, "Oh no!" And you can see she's fumbling around and she goes, "Ha ha!" and pulls out our custard cream from the bottom. And I'm like, "There's some in there. There are some in there." I love them. I adore them. I really do.
I would say that the one that I used to absolutely adore, but they were just non-practical, was the party rings.
Don't like them
because you dunk a party ring and it just falls apart instantly. The whole lot. So, what were you about to say?
I like a coconut ring. Well, listen, the dichotomy of the custard creams and the bourbons is works in it here as well. I'm a custard cream. My wife is bourbon all the way.
She's perfect.
So the one I was going to advise, the one I was going to recommend, my favorite, like childhood, and every now and again I spot them somewhere. Toffee Pops. Have you ever had Toffee Pop? Burton's Toffee Pop. It's nice.
No,
it's nice. It's like a biscuit with like a caramel center and a chocolate top, and
Oh,
yeah, there's kind of this like
nice.
sort of ritual that I do where I eat all the edges off, and then have the middle, savor the middle.
You see, I like fig biscuits. I love fig rolls.
Fig rolls,
yeah, but they're very old school. That was what my nan used to have in the tin.
Well, I like madeleines. My wife takes a piss on me all the time because I like madeleines. She thinks I'm an old lady. I love them. I gotta watch out though. That, like I get really I gotta have these like what are they like gastro pills, to kind of stop my whatever it is like. But yeah, they set me off good. They do if I have too many of them.
Well, I hope you're not like a celiac like I found out, which then destroys the whole thing because they don't make custard creams or bourbon biscuits in any viable option for us. They pretend the packets look nice, the pictures on them are great.
Oh, it's the gluten-free stuff.
Yeah, and then you eat it and you go, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not so. It's less biscuit, more powder.
Powder.
It's like gluten-free bread. I have tried it, and every time I have it, it's like you try and rub. And I would love it if someone could produce for me a gluten-free loaf of bread, which you can actually wipe butter over without it falling apart.
Waitrose have one. I'm giving them a name check. It withstands the swipe.
My other child has just come home from work, and she works at Waitrose, so I will find out about
it's
that.
not cheap. It's about £3.20 for a half loaf, but it works. It works. Yeah. Paul, this has been absolutely far better than I even hoped it would be. It's been really, really good to have someone with such similar likes to us. We kind of one of our people. We love this.
We keep on finding more of our people, John, all the time. It's great.
No, I've had a right blast. I mean, it's a shame really that we have to go because, we barely talked about. We really got to Blender, didn't we? Because I've got there's so much we could talk about.
It is, but it's growing with the podcast is definitely growing, and it's literally because of people like yourself, Paul, coming on, talking about your experiences, talking about what you do for a living, explaining to the people who are a bit further back, the person that you were when you were like 17, 18. What you were trying to discover about yourself. And it is a lot about the experiences you have as a kid. It's like all those kids who... I mean, I remember sitting there and watching Alien and going to the cinema and seeing The Last Starfighter, of all things.
That was such a good film.
And I saw it in a double bill with Rocky IV. I definitely preferred The Last Starfighter. But it's like, but I knew then, when I saw The Last Starfighter, which I think was 86, I remember being at the cinema and just going, that car's not real. That spaceship's not real. But it was the first time there was anything really properly shiny. It was the first time I think they had actual ray trace reflections on an object.
I mean, for me, it was The Abyss that blew my mind with the water sequence. That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a great film. I think it's a good way. I like the way you structure these because I think even though I went there anyway, like I knew I could tell that that was the structure we were going for, was the letting people talk about the things that like got them fired up when they were kids or when they were teenagers, because that it does stay with you. Like that, it's amazing how sustaining like those inspirations are, and that's why nostalgia's got such a huge draw for people, is that they remember, they rekindle those feelings. And like I, for instance, with Akira, I every now and again, not just Akira, but things like Ghost in the Shell and Magnetic Rose is one of my favorites as well. It's part one of the Memories anthology that Katsuro Otomo, the director of Akira, headed. He didn't direct Magnetic Rose. Anyways, it's one of my favorites. So usually I think of them as baselines. It's like if I haven't seen them for a while, like just recently I've just gone back and looked at all the boards again and watched the films again, and Satoshi Kon's films as well and stuff like that. It's just like I don't know, it's like coming back to baseline, it's like the bit in Blade Runner 2, when he goes into that room and he has to keep saying the thing until he gets back onto the correct path again.
Yep.
It's that, and I think they work really well as like sort of tethers for your taste almost. Like, and you shouldn't like never be embarrassed about something you like. If you really love something, just be a fucking geek about it. Like, don't pretend like, oh, you're too cool to pretend that you love something.
And I'll be honest. I'll give my son a bit of a shout out as well, because he's 22 years old, but he's always stuck with the Warhammer. I got him into it when he was 5 years old. He eventually started painting. He's now got amassed. Well, he probably won't admit to how much he's amassed, but it's probably into the thousands. But he does recycle and resell. He does. He's not a hoarder like I am. I hoard everything. I've got things that I did when I was 5 years old, and I can't part with them. But Marie will invite you in. You know that she's ready. I have one room, and I have to blur the background because it's just he's literally camped in it. But yeah, he's. I think, and we said this about the generation that is now, and they have so many things pulling them apart almost, because of how they've grown up, but to have something that you're proud of, certainly for me, when you talk about the best thing you ever make, for me it was obviously my son, because that's the best version of me going forward. So, and that's kind of what I want. I always hope the podcast would grow into, and just like you say, organically they have. I mean, I think the way that we started with the blender thing was brilliant. It really was, and Gary had a genius idea of numbering like the blender rollout, which was great. And I think at some point next year we will actually surpass them, but they are rolling out 3.6. So Gary, we've got to catch up.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think it wasn't intended to be like a blender roller. It was more intended to be like a really bad machine system that was being constantly kicked in the arse until it reached a version where it was good enough. Because it was just literally, it was versioning up. Because I mean, go back to the very beginning. It's like any podcast. No. You don't really know what you're doing. You've got a rough idea. Whereas now, I think we've reached a point where
there's a flow.
It's becoming a formula, and we know that it's better when there's a third person, and we know it's better when we're a bit more specific about where we're going. But we needed. It's like learning a piece of software. Yeah. It really is, because it's just a matter of you're going through constant revisions until you get a version which actually will do what you need to do. It's like going from Blender 0.9 suddenly to version 3.5. That's never going to happen, is it?
Yep.
Okay. So
I've just looked at Magnetic Rose, and I have to now watch.
Well, I'm going to watch. I'm going to watch D'Artagnan. I really am. I genuinely am going to watch. I really am going to watch it. It's so good.
I've just actually we've just rewatched the BBC Three Musketeers that was on. I think it was 2013, something like that. It's good. It's a good romp. Beautiful cinematography in there. And
if you want to see something that's old, that's science fiction, that's based upon a book that was done by the BBC, which in my opinion 100% stands the test of time. It looks a bit wobbly in places, but it's the 1982, I think, BBC TV adaptation of the book The Day the Triffids by John Wyndham.
Yes.
I have a vague recollection of that. I've definitely seen it. Not for some time.
I used to work at a garden centre, and they actually had one of the fiberglass triffid plants in the exotic plants section next to all the ones that eat the flies and stuff like that, so the Venus flytraps and stuff like that. And it's like only 6 episodes, each one's about half an hour, but it is just superb, and it's so close to the book. Obviously this is a time before anyone had mobile phones or anything like that, so and no internet. Computers weren't that much of a thing. So it is. The story was written in the 50s, and it's a fantastic adaptation, and it's a really good story.
I'd add into that from a film point of view. War of the Worlds, the original film version of War of the Worlds, it just still gets that feel.
The American one,
the Orson Welles, the voiceover with.
Oh, you mean the radio play?
Stands the test of time. It still freaks me out just listening to that. So
well, it's back to that thing about it's radio. It's what you. It's not you make all the pictures up in your head.
They thought it was real, right? Some people thought
yeah,
it was real.
Yeah.
There were people who were basically running out in the streets
if it was anything,
and screaming
if
and
it was
heading for the
anything
hills.
like the government's attempt at warning us all through our mobile devices, we would have had nothing to worry about. Because some of us would have been listening to it and others would have been going, I haven't heard that. What's that?
Yeah. Right, I'm going to have to go.
Me too, because I've been holding that
so
2 pints of ginger beer. I'm starting to move backwards and forwards.
I have to say, so, can I say, if that's okay, Paul, how wonderful it has been having you. It really has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. And you're really good hosts. And this has been what I like about stuff like this. It doesn't happen all the time. But quite a lot of time it does. I find when you're speaking with people who are equally as passionate about something, is you just kind of like start talking like you've known each other for years, right? You just fall into it. That's great. That's always nice, and it just makes for good chemistry. Yeah. And I'll gladly come back another time if you do want to repeat. Or all right.
Yeah. And I'm definitely going to ask you if you do know anybody that can help us out with a storyboard or two for a project idea. But no, Paul, this was one that I put on the long range. We do have a long range list, and your name went on there just as a sort of, there's someone that we can eventually get to. Paul, your name was up there because of the stuff you did in Blender, but also I think also the different dimension you would bring, because we normally talk about games or VFX, and this was a real strike back to roots of animation, which is where I wanted to get to it eventually at some point. And it's kind of almost the growing up, step up moment of the podcast, I feel, because we've got that legitimacy in there of, we've talked to somebody that animates things, you know, in a traditional sense of the word of animation, and understands the whole construct of how to tell a story through moving pictures, which was brilliant. So thank you.
I would also say as well, this would be the last thing I say, is that if you're talking about pathways, storyboarding is a pathway to directing as well, because you do so much you do so much thinking, so much execution and visual storytelling, that you're so ingrained in that thing that you learn a whole bunch of skills that are really, really relevant to directing, and there is a natural pathway to that.
Well, we're about to roll over to the 2-hour mark, so
cool. Well, it's been lovely. Thank you very much. Yeah. We're off to the Grey Havens now. Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Goodbye. All right.
Cheers, bye. Paul. Thank you so much. And John, it's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me too.
Take care. I'll see you soon. And everyone who's listening, I hope you've enjoyed it. And we'll speak to you in the next one.
Bye.
I like everything about you.
This work is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 International License. Any opinions stated during the course of this podcast belong purely to myself and to John, and are based at the time that we record this. The theme music is My Everything by DJ Quads. If you like that, and I'm sure you probably did, there is a lot more of his great stuff which you can find at soundcloud.com/DJ Quads, or his music is also promoted by www.free-stock-music.com.